Today in the warehouse, we are looking at the comparison between the Dunlop 060 Plus, which is the aftermarket tyre you'll find in most of your retailers, and the Dunlop 060 No Plus. So why the difference? So the 060 is actually an OE tyre. So original equipment tyre is what OE means, and OE tyre is what comes on the vehicle when you buy it new from the shop. So these are brand new on the market. They've only just released them. And so you'll start to see them come out on vehicles in the near future. So interestingly, they're actually coming out on the new Subaru Solterra and BZ4X electric SUVs. So it's the Toyota and the Subaru. So it's really interesting to see that they're actually on electric cars, which are quite a lot heavier than your average cars. But they're also coming out on the new Lexus RZ as well, and I'm sure you'll see them on other cars too. And so the reason why they have these OE tyres, and they're different to the aftermarket tyres that you're looking at, is and I've had this explained to me by a tyre guy from a different manufacturer, not Dunlop, but basically they make the cars as good as they can, and they make them with all different characteristics, but then they use the tyres to fine tune those characteristics for the road. And it could even be that you might find different 060s or different OE tyres, not necessarily these ones, that bear the same branding, but they're actually for different cars. So Audi, for example, have their AO designation, and then there is one for Porsche as well. I can't remember what that one is, and Mercedes as well. So there might be even different variants of an OE tyre for specific cars designed to actually work to the manufacturer's requirements for that vehicle. The thing is, though, as you can see between these tyres, is that these tyres are probably made for it to feel amazing on a test drive, but perhaps not be as good for long-term usage. So, it's all about that first time your bum goes in the seat and you get in the car and you're like, oh, this feels all right. But if you have a passion for a premium sports tyre and you actually want to get fun in the corners and that sort of stuff, then you'd be wanting to switch out. So actually, I think most customers would actually be wanting to switch out eventually. You'll also find generally that the OE tyre is actually more expensive because there's less of them, because most people generally go for the aftermarket tyre. And so the OE tyre, you'll pay more of a price premium, they'll be harder to get hold of. But if you do want to maintain what the manufacturer recommended for your car when it came from the factory, then the OE tyre is the way to go. But if it was me, and actually somebody in the reviews for the previous version of these, the 050 and 050 Plus, somebody on Tyre Review actually said that they went from the OE tyre, the OE 050 to the 050 Plus, and they said it was like night and day between the two tyres. So if you're tossing it up, you're probably going to have a better time with these tyres than you have with these tyres, but again, good options all round, really. So the other interesting thing I noticed is the OE tyre is actually a non-asymmetric tyre. That means you can fit it either direction. So there's no difference in the tread pattern across the tread. Whereas the aftermarket 060 Plus, this is the outside and this is the inside. It's an asymmetric tyre. And that's good because it means that they can actually dial in handling and other characteristics across the tread pattern. Whereas this one, it's symmetrical, so it has to be the same inside and out. And actually the tread pattern itself is quite different. So you can see here that we've got these channels which are much the same, but even the central ribs are actually, like, they've got a slightly more rounded corner than what you see on the central ribs of the aftermarket tyre. And I mean, these are two different size tyres, so take that with a grain of salt. But just interesting that the rounded shoulders on the central ribs. Interestingly, they have the same solid shoulders, which is a change from the previous 050 and 050 Plus. But the central ribs don't have any siping across the middle of them, like the 060 Plus has. So that's almost like, just a second, I'm just going to grab. So this is the 050, and I'm just going to hold it up here. And Interestingly, the central ribs of the OE 060 are actually a little bit more similar to the 050 Plus in comparison to what the 060 Plus. There's more siping going on in the 060 Plus in comparison to the 050 Plus and the 060 OE tyre. So it's interesting to sort of see the differences between the two. So I'll put this away because otherwise I'll get confused. So, substantial amounts of differences, but they will generally share a tread compound. And with the 060 and the 060 Plus, they're actually saying that they've got this new sustainable silica dispersion agent, which means you get stronger bonds between the silica and the rubber. And that is shared between these two tyres, and that means that it has a whole bunch more better characteristics than the, is that the right way to say it? Has a whole bunch of good characteristics in comparison to the 050, including on this one, potentially 40% more tread life than the 050 Plus. Theoretically, that should carry across to the 060 OE tyre as well. The other cool thing that I've noticed that they share is they have this nano black lettering, which is made using microabrasion. And I actually think it looks quite cool, like, you know, pretty nice. And that's the same on the OE tyre, but perhaps not. It perhaps doesn't stand out as well. We might be able to see in the camera actually how well it stands out. But I particularly like how it looks on the aftermarket tyre, and it shares a bit of that across on the OE size. The other interesting thing is there's no rim protector on the OE tyre. So if you've got fancier rims on your new car, or you've upgraded the rims on your new car, then you're more likely to grind your fancy rims on the curb if you're a rubbish parker with the OE tyre than with the aftermarket tyre. So that's, I don't know, if you're investing a bunch of money in your rims, then you really probably do want to switch to the aftermarket tyre rather than sticking with the OE. It's quite a big thing, really, given, you know, depending on where you park and how you park and that sort of thing. Not going to say anything. So that is really the key differences between the OE 060 and the aftermarket 060 Plus. I mean, again, theoretically very, very similar tyres, but there are quite a number of differences between them. And so for my money, I'd actually be buying the 060 Plus, even if my car did come with this, because this is the one with more fun features that the tyre manufacturers haven't had the control over. But again, it comes down to what sort of tyre purchaser you are. This is me. That could be you. You're cool.